I'm Patrick Jones. I am your host for tonight. I run something called the Institute for Public Policy and Economics here at Eastern, and together the Institute and the School of Business and Accounting are proud to present the latest installment in our speaker series of business leaders in Spokane. The goal of this series is to bring people together, but while we bring people together, we'd like to inform each other about what's been the successes of some of the folks we brought before you. We'd like to have you be inspired, and we'd like you to be engaged with each other when we have that time. So over the last 3 years, this is our third season, we've been able to bring, I think, some wonderful speakers who represent success stories of Spokane, and they tell their story in first person, which is probably the best way of hearing this, although classrooms, third person sometimes work. So tonight we're going to have 3 parts. We're going to have a presentation by our speaker. That will be followed by a Q&A. That will be moderated by Professor Tom Green, if you'd raise your hand, please, who's got a class tonight, and some of your students, I assume, are here, Tom. But it's going to be audience participation after Professor Green has a couple of planted questions for our distinguished speaker, and we hope you'll not feel too bashful about raising your hands. And then the final third is there's food and drink and mingling and something called networking that we'll engage with. So before we proceed any further, it's always important to acknowledge our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors for tonight's talk. First is the Boyne Employment Credit Union. Anybody from BECU here? Nope. Yes. Thank you so much. No? Okay. And then also from Washington State Employees Credit Union. Anybody from that credit union? Margie, can you point them out? No? All right. Well, before I have the honor of introducing our speaker, I want to introduce our president, Dr. Sheri McMahan, who's going to come to this podium and talk a little bit about Eastern Washington University here and now. So, Dr. McMahan.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much for everybody coming out, our community members, our students, faculty, and staff. It's so great to see all of you. It's such an honor to be here, and I want to extend my gratitude to the School of Business and the Institute for Public Policy and Economics. Thank you, Patrick, for always inviting me up here to share a few words about Eastern and what we're doing. Your present reflects something that's really important at Eastern, which is the power of connection. So we really believe that the networking opportunities you have will take you far in your career. Tonight, our students have the opportunity to hear directly from an influential, innovative, and forward-thinking leader, and that's Irv Zakheim, my friend. And that kind of access to his leadership, his experiences, is something that we think defines an Eastern education. And as many of you know, Eastern is the Regent's Polytechnic. And it means we are deeply focused on preparing our graduates for meaningful careers through applied learning. Learning that is hands-on and connected to the challenges that we are facing today. And we are seeing strong momentum in this area. If I can brag for a moment, our development officers are just so amazing. One of our pillars in our fundraising campaign is towards applied learning, and we have raised close to $35 million in that area. So that's it. What's so important is what we're trying to do is if an employer can't pay for that help, that support that they need, we want to make sure that student gets a stipend so they can have those experiences to be able to say they've done an internship. And they no longer have to choose between their job and an internship, but we're able to help pay for that. So thank you for your continued support and making sure that our students get that leg up. Because right now it's very competitive, the job world, and with AI coming on board, our students need that added advantage. So you are all supporting that. So thank you so much. Irv and I share a special connection. We both attended the same college. Not exactly together, but we're both matadors, right? And so we have something to talk about when we get together. And now we both found our way to the Pacific Northwest, which is very exciting. His journey is a powerful example of perseverance and leadership, the very qualities we strive for here at Eastern. So, Irv, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your willingness to share your journey and your insights. So thank you so much. Patrick? Thank you, everyone.
Well, could we have our speaker take the stage around the back, and we'll get started here at, I think, Nick, that's the chair on this side, correct? Yeah, you can go up there, yeah. So a bit more detail than Dr. McMahan offered about Irv Zakheim. He is currently chairman of the board of the company he founded, Zak Designs, or now known as Zak's. Irv didn't start his career, however, as a businessman. He majored in psychology at college, and also he majored in baseball. And he was a professional baseball player. I'm sure he'll be touching on that as the evening draws a little closer. He began the company in Southern California. Well, actually, it was Hawaii, but I hope he'll talk a little bit about that connection. And then Irv, like so many people that we find in our community, decided to uproot his company and move to Spokane. And I hope we'll hear a bit about what motivated that as well. Most of you, or maybe many of you, do know that his business is located in the West Plains. And when Irv located to the West Plains with his company, he was by himself. And he's really been a pioneer, what is now the most vibrant part of, or one of the most vibrant parts of our county's economic development. So this evening you'll hear about dinner, drinkware, and some things like that. But as I've done my research on Irv, he's really pretty eclectic. And in the beginning of his company, there were many other products than those. Zak's is also a very successful licensor, which takes quite a bit of skill. And with his home base in Southern California, he's brought a bit of that Hollywood magic to Spokane and certainly the West Plains. It's also an international company, which is not a standard feature of many Spokane businesses, and I hope you'll be able to touch on that a bit as well. You've heard that Irv is a graduate of Cal State Northridge, the alma mater of our president. He sits on the board of the Ripien Foundation, and for many years was a trustee at Gonzaga University. So please give Irv Zakheim a warm Eagles welcome.
Walk-up song here. How about that? Aiden, I'm going to start with Aiden because he's going to leave early. Stand up. Yep. So Aiden approached me today. He's 23 years old. He said he ate off of this when he was a toddler. And he brought it up, asked if I would sign it, which I did. So I do not want to see that on eBay tomorrow. So where do I start? Basically, I was one of those few kids that knew exactly what I was going to do from 8 years on up through college. So what was that? As Patrick mentioned, I played baseball, basketball, football, whatever the season was, I played. And in high school, I played basketball, baseball. In junior college, I played basketball and baseball. Then I went to Cal State Northridge. And my coach there said, "You're only playing baseball." So played baseball. The first year out there, we won a national championship in 1970. And the next year, we did well, not that well though. And then I ended up signing with the White Sox and played a few years there. So through all my learnings there, then when you get through with baseball, what happens? You go into life insurance. And a friend of mine was already in it, Dennis Gilbert. If you watch Dodger games, he's the guy right behind home plate. And when I'm down there, I usually go with him. But he got me into insurance, which was a great learning thing for me because it taught me how to sell, that have classes, and what I would have to do. I think I took one business class in college because I was going to be a baseball player, then I was going to be a coach and a counselor. That was sort of what I had in my mind I was going to do. So as I moved up and through college, now I had to get a job and work, so insurance was a pretty good way to go, and I learned a lot there. After 2 years, I'm going, and I did pretty well at it, but I was a little tired of that. My cousin got married in Hawaii. Some of you guys know this story. Kenny, don't give any tips. So I went to Hawaii, and when I moved over there, when I changed my license in insurance, I couldn't sell until I did that. So I took the test, and I had to wait. So I started going to swap meets and buying puka shell necklaces and selling them on the beach. And then, thank you, Sheri. Not too many people start their business doing this, but that's how I started mine. So from that, I ended up going to the Philippines and buying puka shell necklaces there, coming back. And then I went back a second time, and I stayed there for 3 months. And I found a factory that was doing hand embroidery. And we started doing all of this back in, we started in 1976, so this is already in the, in the 80s. So as we did it, we got into mainly textiles and embroidered type goods. And then in 1983, something happened in the Philippines. Those political know that Aquino got assassinated, and that sort of was pretty bad. I was doing my business right off of Clark Air Base there. So what I had to do now, I had to make a big decision. I'm not going to be in the Philippines anymore. What do I do? And so I went to Taiwan and I went into China. Imagine going into China in 1983. And when I went there, I saw a lot of possibilities, but not a lot right then. So I went back to Taiwan. I set up factories there that could do our Zoomits, which you see on Seinfeld on the refrigerators. And that got our business going out of a different country than where I started. And then at that point, I started thinking, well, we're just in textiles, and they were doing quotas and things like that. So what do I do now to keep this business going? And I looked around at different factories, and for whatever reason, Aiden, that right there, melamine. For whatever reason, I said, we're going to be the king of melamine. That's a dream, right? And sure enough, we got into those and then started building our business off of the dinnerware and drinkware, which at that time, not too many people were doing that in kids' items. So what I ended up doing is I went to the stores, and Kenny, where's Kenny over there? Kenny's one of the few guys that came with me from LA when we came out here. But Kenny we started selling these, and I went to my class reunion, and I went to Beverly Hills High School. So I had quite a few people there that, dads and were in the entertainment business. Well, one of my friends' dad started Alvin and the Chipmunks. So I go to Ross and I go, hey, how about putting Alvin on our dinnerware? And he said, okay. But he gave me the card of his agent, and when I talked to his agent goes, there's even something better than Alvin right there. And I go, well, what's that? You're going to like this one. Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee's Playhouse. They were doing a big movie, and Pee Wee was just taking off. So now I had Alvin, I had Pee Wee Herman, and we got it into a lot of stores. Then I'm at a trade show and I'm showing all of this, and who comes up to me but Disney comes up and say, hey, we're looking for somebody to do dinnerware, and we got a property, Chippendale Rescue Rangers. What do you think? I go, okay, we'll do it. So that started my 40-year term with Disney, which goes, if you go over there, I'm one of the 4 or 5 that has been doing this for that long, continuously through. So as we do that, then we start setting it up. We get placement in Fred Meyer. We're getting in some of the mass market accounts because we really wanted to focus on that and not the gift area. So now, as we're doing this, and this is another one that I took, Kenny's my lucky charm. So what I did is, what's the next one that came out after that was Dick Tracy with Madonna and Warren Beatty. So I go into Disney and say, I really want to do Dick Tracy. I think that's going to be really big. And they go, yeah, okay. So we negotiated a deal. I think it was like $25,000, which was more than I'd paid for anything else. So as we go through that, $25,000, then they go, but you have to take this other property too. And I go, well, if I have to, I will. Well, that turns out to be, what, Kenny? Thank you. Folks, you got to have some luck along the way. This isn't pure genius. I'd like to say it is, but you got to hit the right ones at the right time. Anyways, we get into The Little Mermaid, and that took our business off. We went into Target, and we got an end cap there, and they said, well, we'll promote around this, and then that'll be it. It did so well, they put it in a section all year. Then they started bringing out re-releases like 101 Dalmatians, then Jungle Book, and all of a sudden we're taking up these shelves at Target, Fred Meyer, and our little business is starting to grow. So this is now around 92. And can anybody tell me, other than Kenny, anybody tell me what happened in April of 92 in Los Angeles? Riots. Thank you. You're from there too, I know. Okay, I should have kept Tim out of this. Anyway, the LA riots happened. That was in April. And my wife, by the way, who's from Spokane, I met her there, and we'd been together now 7 years. And she, after the riots, she goes, I'm done. This is it. So came up to Spokane, met some lawyers, met some accountants, and I met with the bank. So at that time it was U.S. Bank. And we ended up getting a loan from them that was as good or better. I said, as long as you can give me the loan that's as good or better than what I have in LA, then we're moving up here as soon as we find a building. So now, 92, November, we look around. I looked at Post Falls. I looked out in the valley because everybody in Spokane says that's the place to be. Well, guess who? Stupid Irv did again. I go out to Airway Heights because there was a 60,000 square foot building for less than I was paying for my one in there, 20 acres. I end up going up there, and everybody in Spokane goes, why would you move out to Airway Heights? Everybody goes out there to die. Their businesses, nobody's made it out there except for Fairchild and Boeing. No, anyway, we've been out there now since 92. Our 60,000 square foot building's now over 300,000 square foot. Our 20 acres, I bought the back 20 acres, and we've filled all that up. So again, brilliant idea, but it happened to be the building that was right for us, so that made the decision. So the other part of all this too is all you students in here, if you're going to look at doing a business or being part of it or what you're doing, by what I've done here, it's nothing up to here is led anyone to believe that anybody could have been doing what we were doing. Take a baseball player who's in insurance and then starts a business. How do you do that? And between 90 and 99, we grew this little business from 5 million to 55 million. And all of a sudden, we had a nice business. We were out on the West Plains and growing. And the first years we were there, I did all the in fact, I did all the hiring, I think, the first 3 years. Didn't have an HR director yet. I had Kenny, who moved up from LA, and I had Michelle Joe, who's my partner, move up from LA. We actually had 6 move up from LA. 3 of them went back. If all of you that are from here know, the 92 was the biggest snowfall, I think, in the history, right? So after about that was from November till about April, and those 3 from LA, they ended up going back somewhere before the end of that. So I'm with 3 people, and I'm hiring, and by the end of the first year, we have 48 people, of which I interviewed and hired every one of them. And back then, you'd put an ad in and you'd do it, you'd get resumes like this. Now you're lucky, and they're all good, qualified people, by the way. Now it's hard to get that kind of quality and that amount of people. But I ended up sitting down interviewing, and it was sort of to the point when I would sit down with them, and I said, so when can you start? Well, I'm not working now. Okay, your desk is right over there. Go start working now. So we basically filled 48 the first year. By the end of the second year, we had 98 people. And some of those people, I'd probably say 30 of those people of which I hired are still there. Some of them have retired or they're retiring now. But the fact that we went through this and what it was and how we did all of that is setting up a business that's going to really do well. And now as we go through the 90s, then it's like, okay, what do we do from here to keep this going? And it was really looking at the accounts and what we're going to do. We basically were working with all the big accounts, so Walmart, Target, and by then they had all these other accounts on the East Coast, Hills, Bradley's, Caldor. Rick, what was the one you worked for back there? Farmore? Farmore. So Farmore was all these accounts that we dealt with that have since, in the past 15, 20 years, have all gone away. So now we have Target, Walmart, Meyer stores, and Fred Meyer, or a mass market now. And then grocery with Fred Meyer, because they do grocery too, Kroger and Publix and some of these other ones. But the big change of what we did, and this is a tough part, because at that point, what did we have, Rick? 1,500 accounts? Right around there. And everything we did at SAC was, how do you get more accounts? So when they'd come in, I opened up 10 accounts. I opened up 15 accounts. The salesman, that was one of the things they had to do, open up those new accounts. So what happens as we're going through all of this, 2017, we're looking at our business and we're going, this isn't working. We went in and I said, okay, do 80-20, what we're doing on our business, on our accounts, everything. So inventory. So Rick and Bryce, who work for us, they dig in and they get all the, it took 6 months to do all of this. So, and they're going, why are we going through all of this? I guess I said, because we need to know where our direction needs to go. Well, out of those 1,500 accounts, 15 of them were 90% of our business. 50 of them, that was 70, 75, 80, and then 90 was like up to 25, 30. That's, when we looked at it, we go, why are we dealing with all these other accounts? And they're not only that, but they're bleeding us because they're dealing in minimum quantities, $100, $150 orders, and we're doing a lot of work back there and not making a lot of money. So when we pull that back, all of a sudden, it wasn't easy, by the way. Salesmen in their head, they're thinking it, but it's hard to do. So what we ended up doing is, we said we aren't going to go up to customers because we're not that arrogant to say we don't want to deal with you anymore, but we changed our terms. Instead of $150 minimum, we said, okay, I wanted to start at $1,000. He wouldn't take it. He says, oh, can we do 500? I think we got somewhere in the 500 to begin with, and then I think after that, we ended up raising it again. But we did that. We didn't pay shipping anymore, all these things that we knew that they wouldn't do. But those things, if they did want a deal under that, at least we could make money off of that. So it's kind of funny because when you look at that, in the past few years, our customers have gone like this, and our business has gone like that. So it's like, how do you figure that out? Because we did the data, we looked at the data, and I kept going back to Rick and Bryce and said, "Do you believe this?" And he goes, "Yes." Then get those guys to stop selling to those accounts. And then every year it would go down further and further. But that's a change of what you have to do. And it was tough to do that. Imagine changing the whole complex of your business overnight and then going in. The blessing in all of this is when we did that, what happened in 2020? COVID? Anybody remember that? So COVID comes along. Now all of a sudden all these small stores are going out of business. They're all out of there. Our customers who we ended up going with, and again, this isn't brilliance, this was luck on that part because I didn't see COVID coming. But what ended up happening is all of our customers were stayed open. And by doing that, it kept us in business. During the period of time from the beginning of COVID through the end, we doubled our business. Because and now with fewer customers, all of that, and from that point on, we continued that. But it was a tough thing to do, and it's a tough thing to look at and say, how do you do this, and what do you do when you're doing it? So it was a challenge, but we got through it, and now our business has tripled from that point. So when things happen to us, we just figure things out and we go out and do it. We got a great team. Rick, who's my president, CEO now, he's been with me since '95. Jim, how long have you been there? It's 2007. Kenny, you're in the 90s. I'm 1976, though, so that's 50 years. And we have a great team at Zach. We have a great leadership team. We keep people here. The value of having Zach here and not somewhere like in L.A., a lot of those people in L.A., my good people would be looking for other jobs. Here, they come here to work for us. We're the only thing here that's like this. They like what they're doing here. They're going to stay here. They aren't going to move. And they raise their families here just like I did, and everything's good. When I brought Rick in, this is a neat one, and this gives you an idea of what we do as a family atmosphere. When I hired Rick, he was in Virginia, and he was doing sales out of there. I wanted to promote him to vice president, but I wanted him to come to Spokane. So part of that was when he did come, he says, well, I have a problem because I have two kids, and I really want to go out to all their sport. They're all in sports, and I want to be there for them. I said, well, I don't see that a problem. I've got 4 kids, and I'm out at all of their events, so I don't see why that would be any different. As it goes, his kids went to Lakeside, mine went to Freeman, and we were on competing sides. Those are arch rivals. So we're at games pounding it. We'd leave the office around the same time, and Lakeside had a pretty good baseball team around then too. But it's kind of cool though, and that shows it. And when we do it, we treat everybody in such a way. That's why they want to stay, and that's why they do it. But bottom line on everything you do here, and this is part of what we did along the way too, we start giving back in the community. So building the business was one thing, but when you make money, part of your obligation in any city you're part of is to give back in that community. And so we did the Zach Charity Open, with the Ripon Foundation for 17 years. We turned that over to Community Cancer Fund to do the Andrew Ripon Initiative. So they're still going forward with it. And then, stuff I've done with Boys and Girls Club, Boy Scouts, you name it. Zach supports almost all those types of nonprofits in this area. But I'm just as proud of what we've done in this community as what we've done building our business. I look at what we've done in the business and what we've done by growing our business as being able to do what we did in giving back and being a vital member of this community. If you look at everybody at ZAC too, we have what's called ZAC Pack, and these people, they decide what to do. Amy ends up heading the foundation things we do, so things come through her. But we have a group out there that does our events, the parties we do, and how we do things. So it's not just business, it's having fun doing business. And there's a difference in that. So if you can bring joy to your people and to your customers, only good things happen along the way. As far as I can see, what we do, because at Eastern, what I've done too, is support the basketball. Coach Munson's here. Coach, you're still here, aren't you? You're on asleep, okay. Let's hear it for Coach. So the way I got involved in Eastern is I helped bring a basketball coach in about 12 years ago from Whitworth when Jim got the job here. Then we needed to raise money for the team, and we started a 6-man club that had been formed over at Whitworth, and we brought that over here. So I'm real proud of the fact that we've been able to maintain that, and with Coach Munson and Ryan Lundgren and McGuire back there, the 3 coaches, that we've been able to support them along the way this whole way too. And I think it's real necessary for athletics in a college environment, not only for the kids who are playing, the student athletes, but for the students and the community that it supports. And I think these guys are getting it going. Second half of the year, they had one of the best winning streaks in the Big Sky. And I was real proud of these guys on how they hung in there, because it was a real tough start to their season. But Coach, I'm there with you, and I'm going to see a winning team next year from the beginning. And Tim, what's that? And Tim, don't give him too tough of a schedule to begin with. That's the other thing we need to do. But right now, that's basically my life story. And okay, you can hit the final one. Well, I hope so, yeah. That was the plan. Questions?
Okay, I guess I'm on. Boy, he answered quite a few of my questions. I'm glad I had more than 3 or 4.
Okay.
So I guess the first question I have is, what forms of business-to-business and business-to-consumer marketing did you use in the early days when you first got started?
Could you repeat that with the mic?
Oh, okay. What forms of business-to-business and business-to-consumer marketing did you use in your early days? What worked and what didn't work for you?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over the years. When we started, I didn't even get into that. When we started, our main form of communication was telex. And then, but in marketing, what we ended up doing is, especially to businesses, we ran ads in most of the trades, and then we also tried to get in different magazines and stuff. That was really pretty much the way we did most of our marketing at that time, either through trade publications.
Okay. So bringing to present, so what forms of marketing do you do presently? What works well for you?
Well, right now, and that's why I'm saying it changed, not only changed fast, it's changing faster. So right now, digital marketing is a big thing, social media, everything, trying to get out to those. The traditional marketing, going to Trade journals, we haven't, I think, spent a dime on a trade journal or magazines. It's all social media, trying to get influencers involved in our products, things like that.
Okay. What do you feel your competitive advantage all these years has been in the marketplace?
Probably licensing. When we're dealing with big stores like Target and Walmart, the one thing that differentiated us from our competitors, we had licensing. On regular product, they could go out and do it themselves or really nail down the prices. On ours, we were able to maintain what we did for 40 years because licensing has sort of been the thing that we've been really good at.
Okay. One thing that really impressed me on your website was your partnership with St. Jude Research Hospital. I thought that was pretty cool. I think, using St. Jude's patients' artwork, that's really a wonderful program. And how long have you been doing that program with them?
We just started that last year. We sent a group over to St. Jude's. It is one of the best national organizations we could have aligned with. As I mentioned earlier, we primarily had been doing local type things, but St. Jude is so good at what they do as a national one. And you may not know what we've done there. We've aligned with them as a licensee where we're going out and the kids' art we're putting on our products. And then what we do from that, then we put it into Target, and we're doing, when's that promotion coming out, Rick? Do you know? Okay, I'm asking, the marketing department's not here, so. But it'll be in Target sometime this year, and they'll have the kids' designs on it. And then instead of paying royalty like we do to Disney or Warner Brothers or whatever, the money all goes to St. Jude, so it's sort of a donation. So we're trying to align with companies like this now, and we're looking at a national level of what we can do. So that's the first one that we've done. And St. Jude, by the way, is one of the best. Nobody pays for when they go in there for treatments, and they're treating some pretty bad stuff in there, and they use it for research to try to make things better. So it's one of the better things we've done.
Okay. I guess one of my last questions is, as you know, company culture is vitally important to any business. And how did you set the tone from the beginning?
Well, like I said, I wanted to go into coaching. And what's coaching all about, Dan? You work as a team. You work with everybody, not just your best players, all your players. You have to get everybody working. And when I did it, I didn't have a formal business background, so I acted like I was coaching a team. And we've coached them up pretty good, as far as I can see.
So did everybody initially buy in to everything you were doing?
Pretty much. I mean, we need a certain type of person to work for Zach because we sort of let them on their own. They aren't being micromanaged. And so when you come to work for us, you have to have a certain personality. So when I would interview and when I was hiring people, that's how I got people. I very rarely asked them about what they could do. I just wanted a good, sharp, smart person who, if they didn't know how to do that, we could train them. But I wanted to get the character of the person and what they were going to do, and I think we continue doing that, and that's why we end up with such good people at our place that end up staying there a long time.
Okay. I'm sure we probably have some students out there that would like to ask a couple questions. One in the back.
Thank you. So one of the big things with licensing is that things are going to go in and out of style. How do you combat that?
Well, we started our business with Pee Wee Herman and Little Mermaid and Dalmatians and these movies, and they were promotional. They were supposed to be promotional in and out type promotions where they'd put it on an end cap and be done. But they were doing so well they kept it. And when we started, we were lucky enough that they did not just do the end cap, promote it, and get it off the shelf. It did so well. The next thing we know, we have 4 feet at Target. 3 or 4 years later, we have 8 feet at Target. I think we peaked at 12 feet at Target. And it was amazing because the kids liked those so much that they kept buying them over and over again. And don't forget the 3 to 8 year olds, which is primary kids we were selling to. They, that constantly changes. So from the kid to the little brother to the sister and everything else that comes along. But licensing, as we do it now, it's changed. So back then, that was sort of kept us in with just a promotional item. Now, a lot of these things are streaming, they're coming out. It's not just in and out promotion, so it's actually even better because kids are watching, they get home and they're watching it. And whereas before it was just on a movie. So this is actually better for us, the way it's coming out now, and it's very solid, day in and day out planogram business. We still promote around a movie, or we'll still promote around certain things, but really what we want to do, the solid foundation of everything we do, will be getting it in to planograms, which Target calls them, and modulars, which Walmart calls. Walmart changed to modular because they wanted to see who you were dealing with.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so from your story, it sounds like your success was pretty quick, but were there ever any thoughts of like scrapping the idea? And if there were, what kept you going?
My first 5 or 10 years in business, my best friend down in LA who got me into insurance, at the end of every year, I'd have to evaluate if I was going to continue doing what I'm doing or go into insurance with him. And it was getting harder and harder to resist. At that point, Dennis was becoming a real big insurance agent, and he was living in Beverly Hills, driving a Rolls Royce, and he became an agent for baseball, and it was tough. I mean, when I'm seeing him making all this money, but I'm not a quitter, first of all, and second of all, I just felt this is what I was meant to be doing.
So you talked about focusing on your largest accounts. Do you say there's any risk in that, like putting all your eggs in one basket? And if so, is it a necessary risk to grow your business?
That's a great question. And yes, it is a risk. But what we did, again, going back to that, and I think it happened around that time, our target guys, we were just dealing in housewares area. And our buyer says, you know what? Just out of a whim, it's doing really well, but he says, I'm not going to buy this anymore. And these guys will tell you, we went in our office that day that we were told that, because we were in there when he told us that. We went back in and we said, we are not going to be in one department anymore at any of these accounts. So now, from that, we started opening up different departments within Target. That department ended up coming back. But now we're in 8 and 9 departments in Target. We're in 8 and 9 at Walmart. So if one buyer, because sometimes buyers just get a whim to do something, we don't want to be at their mercy. So we're in enough departments at these big stores that we feel confident enough that one buyer making a stupid decision isn't going to affect us.
All right, we do have a couple questions off of YouTube here. How did you have to adapt your marketing internationally and also throughout the years as technology changed? Did this affect your business strategy?
Like I said earlier on the marketing, it went from trade to where we're doing digital, and it's even changing faster now. And the way it is with influencers out there on how you do that, I mean, that's really what can take products or licenses or your business to another level. I mean, that's what happened with Stanley. Stanley had that item that's so popular. They had it out for 3 years, and they were getting ready to drop it because they couldn't sell it. an influencer goes out with it, and all of a sudden, the whole thing takes off, and they go from a $200-300 million company into a billion-something company because of that. So that sort of is a little bit different how you do marketing and how you get it out in the public. Does that answer your question? Guess so.
Hi, Irv.
Hi.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about your work in international trade, kind of how you got started, where it is today, and where you might think it's going in the future?
Well, I was going to a trade show. I used to go to Birmingham in England every year to a trade show there, and I'd go to Ambiente, which is in Frankfurt, Germany. And from those trips, I would obviously meet people and decide what we're going to do. And on a flight back, on one of the cocktail napkins, I was writing a business plan, like I typically do, for how we're going to get in the international business. And I came back and presented that to our team on how we're going to do that. And basically what it was is we were not going to go over there and do it ourselves. We were going to align with an existing company who's not a competitor of ours and allow them through their business and their channels, sales channels, to sell our products. So doing that, and we would take 51% shares, would give them 49. We wanted to be the majority, and then we would help them get the licenses there. They would come over to Spokane, and we would train them, and we would go over there and walk around stores with them. So set that up in England, in France, in Switzerland, in Mexico, Australia, and they all, from day one, did pretty well. What we decided to do after about 10, 15 years of that, we figured we weren't making enough in that, and we wanted to focus on our business here, and especially with our business going through the roof like it was, we didn't want that as a problem. So we basically sold our shares back to the companies, allowed them to continue, but then we're selling to them continually as a distributor, but we take out the ownership part of it where we continue selling. But I wanted to do that more on focusing on our business in the U.S., which we were making a lot more money than anything we were doing internationally. Sure.
I always wondered how a company like yours handles this. I hear that these are just stories I've heard, but that, I don't know, Costco or Walmart will all of a sudden say, yeah, I'm interested in your product, and now we want to order, I don't know, 100 million of it or something, and then it's scary to to do all that, and then also at any time they could say, okay, now we don't want to do it anymore, and how do you deal with that?
If you want to place 100 million of something, we'll figure out how to make it. But we want to talk to your bank first. We want to get an LC, and we'll go do it. I don't know that we've ever really got stuck by Walmart, Target, Costco, any of the big guys. I don't think we've ever really taken it. Amy's in our credit. They're the best ones. They do markdowns and chargebacks. They may hit us up here and there on that, but we've never really been hit up where they didn't pay for what they bought, or sometimes what they do, they want you to take some merchandise back. They may want to do some different things, but we've never really been stung really bad on any of that, which is good.
Sneak through here again.
Irv, you talked about your early efforts to explore opportunities and potentially expand internationally in Philippines and elsewhere. Can you share your formula for how you established relationships and built trust?
I'm a people person, Steve, and the thing is, I look people in the eye. I still deal the old way. I look them in the eye, shake hands, and we got a deal. Has that worked 100% of the time? No, but I'd probably say 80, 90% it's been good. And if you can see something coming with people, the problem is with people, Steve, you know that. So if you're dealing with people you trust, you aren't going to have a problem. So you have to sort of get a gut feeling for who you're working with. And it's even the buyers. I mean, buyers play games too, so you have to really look them in the eye and figure out what they're all about. And when you're doing something like when we say, okay, you're going to do 100 million, is that buyer reliable on doing that? And so, I mean, it's really the relationships you build, and there's got to be trust on both sides on how you do things.
Hi. So sometimes in our lives, our friends and loved ones who care so much about us, and if we want to take a risk, especially one that involves money, they might want to talk us out of that risk. I'm wondering if you encountered that, and how did you deal with that?
I did. When I started out, I had part of my baseball money, I had part of my puka shell money, and I pooled it together and started my business. And my uncle, who was very successful, and he was my mentor going along too. But I went to my Uncle Jimmy and I go, you know, I showed him my business, what I was doing, and he liked what I was doing. And I go, can you loan me $25,000? And he goes, no, but I'll do something better for you. And he walked me over to his bank, and he set up a credit account for $25,000, and he co-signed it. And that started, and then the next year went to $50,000, the next year $100,000. We were growing pretty big. But my Uncle Jimmy taught me something very valuable. The line of credit is more important than the money. He could have given me the $25,000, and it was meaningless, because the next year I'd be going to him for $50,000. The next year I'd be going to him for $100,000. At some point that's going to stop, because he's not a bank. So he was smart enough to say, I'm going to help you set up a line of credit that I've worked off of from that time until now, where we have, a 13 million line of credit. So, but I do that with other people too. So when I've done it, I don't loan people money. I'll take them down and get them a loan and get them a line of credit. I learned from my Uncle Jimmy.
What product or moment has been the most successful to you? Like, what just has the best memory for you regarding a product or a moment in your career?
Yeah. It's hard to limit it to one. Can I give you more? And I'll give you reasons for those. Little Mermaid, because it kicked us off. Lion King, because that was the first one that was like kaboom. I mean, that one went through the roof at that time, and it put us at another level. And then all of you probably know Frozen was so special. That did more than anyone we'd ever done by far. And it was still, I don't know that we'll ever have one like that again, but those are the ones that probably stand out, as that they, for various reasons, they put us at a different level as far as either getting us in the business, growing the business, and now getting it better. So those are the three I would look at. Thanks for not limiting to one.
Thank you for your presentation. Very, very interesting path you've taken. So I understand that Zach is mostly a marketing and licensing company and dealing with intellectual property. But what about the production side? What about the way you choose now and chose then to do your production of this melamine product? How did you approach that?
Well, when I started out, I did all the traveling over myself. In the Philippines, I'd go over there 3 or 4 times a year. I'd put the lines together. I'd make sure production was going. And I mean, when I started out, I'd go over there, then I'd come back. I'd go to all of our sales. I did basically everything, and then I'd have a few people in the office and maybe somebody help shipping. But when you really look at how you do things, you have to look at your business in a certain sense and why you do it. And when we started in the Orient, when I wanted to kick back a little bit from taking 3-4 trips over there every year, I ended up hiring somebody that was Taiwanese. She was selling thread to our Filipino factory, so I knew Michelle from that. Then I asked her if she wanted to work for me. She's Taiwanese, so when I was in Taiwan, I met with her and said, "How would you like to come work for me?" She says, "Okay, but you have to go meet my dad, and who doesn't speak any English, and I don't speak any Taiwanese." So they would interpret back and forth, and by the end of it, he says, "Okay, if you want to go work for him, go ahead." But having somebody over there, and what that was, is we still dealt with agents in Taiwan and China. And what changed everything was 92, the year we were going to move here. I wanted to make sure Michelle was going to stay with me, one way or the other. Because if she came here, it's not a big Taiwanese community in Spokane. You may or may not know that. But so when two things I thought could be a problem. One was a small Chinese community, and number two was the weather. And like I said, the first year we came here, the snow drifts were hot. You couldn't even see the top of her head when she would walk in the front of the building. But setting that up, and from that, we ended up setting up our own office in Taiwan called Sarah Rose International. And by doing that, they would be our working for us, going out to factories, doing the inspections, doing the negotiations. And that's really probably the best thing we did. We always call them our secret, our top secret company over there, because nobody has what we do over there. Somebody totally dedicated to what you're doing. And that's helped us grow, have few quality problems, shipping on time, and shipping fast when we have to. So having 100% of our factories in the Orient, that helped make that work better.
Hey, Irv, just a couple things. First of all, you made a comment about giving back to the community, and I want to thank you for the job that you guys have done, really sharing your wealth with this community, because it is impressive. And for those who don't know about it, Irv's done a fantastic job of being visible in this community and encouraging others to be philanthropic as well. A couple of questions. So on these licenses that have done so well, Little Mermaid, Lion King, those, did you ever see the movies before you invested in those things?
We did. Yeah, Disney usually about a year before, while you're getting ready to sign the contracts, they'd show you the movie. And it was kind of neat because you'd see movies before they would come out on the market. But you had to make a decision on those based on that. But I'll tell you something, Jeff. It was a lot easier back then. They'd have one movie and it was always a hit. Now they have a lot of movies. But when Mermaid came out, there was no competition.
Yeah.
When they re-released Dalmatians in the theaters, no competition. Jungle Book. And then, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. It was the only thing out there. Then when more companies, Warner Brothers and these others, started doing movies, they sort of caught on. Then it got tougher because then you had to really make some decisions on what you went with. But it was easier from the first part of the 90s to about mid-90. After that, it started periodically getting a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and so a somewhat related question. So one of the biggest expenses in your business, I suspect, is inventory. And so as each of these licenses, they probably all have a lifespan, right? And so what happens to the inventory as something winds down? What do you do with that inventory?
You're kidding. You're kidding. You mean everything doesn't sell through 100%, Jeff?
I can tell you about the grocery business, but I want to know about your business.
I know you're in the inventory business, but you're in foods and stuff. That's a good question. So Kenny over there, in addition to what he does, one of his jobs is to liquidate excess inventory, overruns. You're always going to have overruns. If you don't, then you're doing something wrong because you don't want to run out. So the way you do business is you don't have too much, but you don't have too little, right? So, but when you do have too much at the end of a run, it's just part of business is finding somebody and liquidate it. No, it stays in the country. We have actually from that point it was Ross, TJ Maxx, those type dollar stores. We had a guy from when we were in LA that had a nice little business that would always take it. And then you sort of know those that are going to pay maybe 30% on the dollar, 20%. So as it got worse and worse, you'd go to the one that's going to take everything, but you maybe only, you're going to lose. But we write them off on our books and stuff. So we've done it long enough that as long as it's within our books, we're fine.
I've got one last question. Do you have any issues with copyright infringement and intellectual properties?
On
Somebody
from Zach or from one of the licensors?
well, from somebody in the outside that wants to steal one of your, designs or put out a product that they're not licensed to sell?
Well, if it's from a licensor like Disney or Warner Brothers, then we turn it over to them and let them go after them. If it's a design we did, then we have to take appropriate action.
Does that happen very often?
Not very.
Not very?
No.
Oh, okay.
Would you want to mess with Disney?
No.
Okay.
No. No.
I can read another question from YouTube here. Let's see. What has been your biggest learning curve going from founder to running and growing the company?
That's a good question. You don't realize it, but sometimes you're your own worst enemy. When you start a business from scratch, then you go to 5 million, you go to 10 million. If you're growing it, sometimes by the way you run it and manage it, you cap yourself off. So sometimes you limit your own growth by how you run your business. If you're going to micromanage, you're going to keep it here. If you're going to have good people and delegate and have them run theirs, then you can do more things. You're limitless how much you can grow. So the critical part is hiring good people. And that was a value when I moved to Spokane. The last year we knew we were thinking about moving, so I didn't hire a lot of people. I didn't hire art director. I didn't hire marketing. I just did it all. Kenny and I were running around doing everything. But what ends up happening is when we moved here, I hired a great art director, even though Bob Takeshita. This guy was phenomenal. Everything was on the computer. We were the first one for Disney to get approval over the computers. Before that, it was all cut and paste. You had to send it in. Then you had to send that over to the Orient. Oh, man. And then when we could do that on computer and send those things over, it was groundbreaking stuff. But Bob had people he knew. We had the best designers in town. Sorry, Lisa, all except for Lisa. But the next one was hiring Gary Kerr, who came in as sales VP, and same thing with Gary. He went out. First thing he asked me was, if I get this job, I have to have laptops for all my people. Now this is 93. A lot of people weren't using laptops, and a lot of people weren't even using computers then. And Gary was putting presentations together for major retailers and licensors that they'd never seen. And so everybody looked at us as being here when we were still a little company, but everybody thought we were much bigger than we were because of the way we did our art, the way we did our sales, the way we ran our business. And that actually did help us grow our business by having that technology in the early going.
So I'm going to jump back to when you were talking about how you'd watch the movies beforehand. Were there ever any movies that you saw and were like not interested in and then they ended up being successful, or was your team pretty on top of it?
we were pretty good at it, but sometimes they told us we had to do it. And as a good licensee, wanting to get the best licenses, we would take some of the ones that they wanted us to do. Would maybe not do as many products, but we would do things for them as a favor that they wanted to go to certain accounts with, and things like that. But that's sort of a game. And the other thing we did too, which came out of that, we had so many licenses. So, Disney by that time had 10, 15 properties that we were dealing with, and we would negotiate each one by one. Finally, I went over to him and I said, we can't keep doing this. Look at our time that we take negotiating each contract, and look at what you do by doing these contracts. I said, we have to do an umbrella deal. All your properties are under one. We'll do one deal. We'll pay a higher guarantee, but it'll cross-collateralize on everything we do. And that was the best thing we ever did for us and for them. And we were one of the first ones to do that, and then they started doing it with others. But that actually opened the doors for us to be more productive and for them to be more productive.
Well, I can take one final question from YouTube here. Where would you see yourself today if you didn't get into sales or making the connections you did in Hollywood?
Well, I did live in LA, and I grew up in Beverly Hills. So I was fortunate to know a lot of people in the entertainment business, and it was a 30-minute drive to get over there to negotiate deals. When I moved up here, I already had contacts. But having those contacts is hard to do. But because we were in a category that they didn't have yet, we sort of built it and from the ground up. So we paid guarantees. And I think I was telling somebody today, we did $10 million a year on POO for a 10-year period. That's $100 million. We paid them, that means we paid Disney $12 million just on POO. So think about what we've done on Lion King, which was out there for a while too, and all these others. But when we're doing that and we're paying the kind of royalties that we're paying to Disney and Warner Brothers and Nickelodeon and all of the others, I mean, it came from a category that didn't exist, so they were like in awe of what we were doing there, especially in that early going. We done? Thank you, Patrick.
Well, my boxes that I listed at the start of the talk have been ticked. I think we've been informed. I've been inspired. I hope some of you have. And we have been pretty engaged. I really thought this was great to hear all these questions. So glad you could provide such good, succinct answers, Irv. We have a little memento that I'm going to ask Tom to present to you, a little plaque, courtesy of the Eagles here, among your many trophies on that wall.
Thank you.
So the tape of the talk will be on the university's YouTube channel, Irv.
Okay.
And anybody else who would like to see this again or see it for the first time. But this is, do you want to just read what that says, Tom?
Yeah. Okay, it says School of Business, Eastern Washington University, distinguished speaker, Irv Zakheim, in recognition of your outstanding presentation at the EWU Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs Series.
Thank you.
Great.